I made a tweet a few days ago, and so I've decided to dive a little deeper with this video. Yeah, so the first thing is that what people believe about what a brand says is more important than what they actually say. What that means is there are two types of messages: the implicit message and explicit message. So in order to get our message across, we have to take care of the non-verbal cues as much as the explicit message we are trying to pass across, in order to be as congruent as possible, and so we can actually win the trust of the people we are trying to speak to. So one thing about trust and why it's so important is, as soon as people trust you, it becomes very easy for you to influence them, because they spend less time trying to verify and confirm what you have said. And so if you're talking to a doctor, for instance, and you already believe he knows better than you, and he's been in the profession for long enough, and he has seen several situations or conditions that are similar to yours, you're very much likely going to just believe whatever it says, even if it's out there to harm you, right? So that's why trust is very important to a brand. Trust is a very functional asset for a brand any day and anytime. And considering the fact that messaging is one of the most important vehicles for building a brand or creating perception, this is very important to pay attention to. So here are 3 key ideas on how to send the right signals in order to land the right impression or communicate your message better. Number 1 is appearance. You can say a lot without words, just by how you appear, where you appear, with whom you appear, when you appear. So let's take that one after the other. So how you appear, for instance, the way you appear can actually communicate for what you value, the type of person you are, what socioeconomic class you belong to, or what you identify as, or what community or tribe you belong to. And a very good example of that, which many of you would be able to relate to, is imagine walking into an estate gate versus driving into an estate gate or any gated environment. So if you have observed, many times there is more respect and better treatment with people who drive, compared to people who just walk into any area. And some of you might be able to relate to this completely. And that's to tell you that the signals that we send out and the associations that people make with them determine very largely how they choose to behave towards us. And this is very important. So as a brand, you have to be very careful about how you are appearing. So think about a uniformed man, for instance. It might be your brother, it might be someone you are very used to. It might even be a security man, someone that might not necessarily be considered high on the socioeconomic hierarchy. But for the fact that the person is wearing a uniform, is putting on a uniform, it almost commands a form of authority to that person. So no matter the social class or level of everybody else, the moment someone like that comes in and tries to create some form of order or make some kind of request, there's an authority already conferred to the person just because of the appearance of them in uniform. Now you may see that kind of person without their uniform and have a completely different interaction or perception or behavior towards them, in fact. So how you appear is definitely a very important way to send signals. Brands can take advantage of this, for instance, in their brand identity, their packaging, and other visual opportunity, other visual touch points that their customers or audience would come across. Where you appear is also a very important thing. So I know a couple of businesses that are very intentional about where they locate their stores. If you look at Apple stores, in many of the locations where you see Apple stores around the world, there are places that are specifically metropolitan environments, places like city centers with beautiful architecture, and even how the architecture is done is intentional to grab your attention beyond whatever is happening in the store. So where they appear and how they appear, right? Back to the first conversation about appearance. With whom they appear and even when they appear. So you want to be sure that your brand is being represented by the right people who have the right association to support and reinforce the value of your brand and not do the opposite, right? So that's the first key idea here, is appearance. So appearance can send a lot of signals without saying anything. So if you think about it, how can you communicate that you are high end without saying it? Or how can you even show that you care without actually saying it? And you have to realize that it's in the very little things and the mundane, seemingly mundane things, and those little moments, that's where it actually comes to bear. That's where many times these signals can actually be communicated. Now, the second idea is experience. So if you think about it, most brands pay lip service, to many things. They can tell you that we care about quality a lot, we care about our customers, customer experience is paramount to us, and many times it's just lip service, right? So one of the best ways to actually send a signal is to make sure that the experience itself demonstrates that you care about that thing, or that thing is of value to you. What other people say about you many times holds more weight because it's more credible and believable. And so I many times argue that brand promises are supposed to be internally facing. That's, it's supposed to be known internally, and everybody is supposed to be working in alignment to fulfill that promise. But that promise is supposed to be experienced externally, and it's from the experience of people that come in touch with your brand that that message is actually passed across, and then is more believable and more credible than for you to be the one constantly saying, oh, we care about quality, oh, we care about customer experience. A better way to show that you care about customer experience is demonstrated when you are interacting with a disgruntled customer. And maybe in some cases you might be right and the customer might be wrong, but how do you still handle a situation like that when you are right and the customer is wrong? Now, the third idea is sacrifice, right? So when you think about it, one of the ways we show that we value something is what we are willing to lose or sacrifice to have that thing. And the same thing goes for our values as well. So as a brand, what are you willing to lose to demonstrate that you stand by your values and the promise you are making to your customers or your business partners? Someone shared an experience recently where they had gone to a restaurant to have a meal, and they didn't like a particular portion of the meal. It didn't taste right, and they gave their feedback. It was not a complaint in any way, it was just a feedback that I just didn't like this particular part of the meal. And then the owner of the restaurant insisted that they do not pay. Now, the customer definitely wasn't making a complaint because they didn't want to pay. They were just giving a feedback, right? They were still going to pay. That was the intention the customer had. But the owner of the business insisted that they shouldn't pay. If you think about it, they are losing money. They are losing their profit in that particular. When you think about it in a short-term span, they are losing money. But do you realize that they've made a lasting impression with that customer, to the point where that customer has actually gone ahead to share that story with another group of people? So when you are going to see the people who have been impressed upon based on that original experience, you see that they already have a positive view of the brand from the onset. Now, so what you're willing to sacrifice is a very big way to signal what you value and what you actually truly stand by. A very classic example of this are engagement rings. So engagement rings are very expensive because they are supposed to signal commitment. I mean, you cannot possibly afford to spend half of your annual salary on multiple women, to show commitment to them. So it's a way to signify deliberately that, okay, I might like several people, but I'm making this commitment to you, and this is a signal that I'm willing to, commit my sweat, blood, and tears and hard work into buying this ring that symbolizes the extent of my commitment to you. And that's a very good example of how to signal things. Sometimes it might appear like you're losing something or you're sacrificing something, but that's definitely one of the ways to signal what you value. It's similar to how people spend exorbitant amount of money on things that are basic. People can spend so much more on basic things and basic amenities just because they want to signal that they have the money, or they belong to a particular class, or they appreciate who is providing that service, etc., etc. So in summary, the right signal serves as a forerunner for your message and makes it more believable. So it serves as a form of evidence. It may not actually be an evidence, but it serves as a form of evidence that makes it believable, that makes your message believable without an experience. So when you think about it, as a brand owner or someone who is very intentional about their interaction with people, how you send signals or the signals you are sending is always more important than what you're actually saying, because signals in many ways are being picked subconsciously, right? But what you're saying, people would first of all listen to it through their own point of view, and sometimes they may not even retain or remember what you say outrightly. But what you signal, the subconscious mind can pick it, and it can even be stronger than what you get to say. So that's all I have to say about the power of signals beyond words. I hope you got some value from this. I'll see you some other time.